He's the leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha and a leading strategist for the BJP. Arun Jaitley doesn't mince words in driving home a point. It's precisely why his response to Justice Markanday Katju has made national headlines. Now, in his first detailed interview after taking on the chairman of the Press Council, Jaitley reasons out why he thinks Justice Katju has crossed all limits. The senior BJP leader also opens up on Narendra Modi's rise in national politics and arms gate on this edition of Frankly Speaking with Arnab Goswami.
Mr. Jaitley, thank you very much for speaking to me on Frankly Speaking. Thank you very much. Big controversy of the statements that you made. Justice Katju responded to it. And if I might quote, he says that Arun Jaitley is talking rubbish and I will not stoop down to his level. He must resign from politics. He's twisting facts. And I have criticized several other Congress-ruled states as well. Why has it come down to what appears to now becoming a personal clash between you and Justice Katju?
Oh, absolutely. There is no personal clash at all. In fact, this is the first time I'm speaking on camera. I am one of the few, there are some others also, who on issues of public importance and public interest occasionally writes. I write an article, I put it on my website, the media takes it as a comment on a public issue and it initiates a debate. And I think that's a good thing for Indian politicians to do. My grievance with Justice Katju certainly is not the choice of his vocabulary, which I don't envy. It's also not the fact that he has strong political views. Any individual is entitled to have political views. My grievance is also not that somebody is criticizing me or my party or Mr. Narendra Modi. A lot of people in the world criticize us and they are entitled to criticize us. My issue is only and only of propriety. And my issue of propriety is, can a person occupying a quasi-judicial post, because he is a former judge of the Supreme Court, actively participate in politics? When you write a signed appeal to people to vote for a particular candidate or to vote against a particular candidate, and you elaborate reasons why you must vote against so-and-so, there is no denying the fact that you are participating in politics. There is no provision in the Constitution which says Supreme Court judges can't make an appeal for a candidate. But we'll run havoc if judges started issuing appeals for candidates. Now my question is, when certain positions, I am not very happy with this idea of giving positions to judges after retirement, but under the present system we are giving positions. Since we are giving positions to judges post-retirement, which are quasi-judicial, where you hear cases, you hear complaints, you decide those matters, certain amount or complete amount of political neutrality is expected. The moment you stop practicing political detachment and become an active player by issuing that appeal in the Hindu, and then the Congress party says he is entitled to criticize Modi and issue that appeal. Now this is not a subject which concerned the Press Council of India. It didn't concern press ethics. It didn't concern freedom of press. What should be the developmental model of Gujarat? Who is guilty for 2002? Who's not guilty for 2002? Who set the Sabarmati Express on fire? Now these are all issues on which he makes a comment which is political in nature, which is a one-sided comment, and he ends it by saying, I appeal to the people of India to vote in a particular manner and not in a particular manner. Justice Katju has participated actively in a political activity. For all those who are supporting his right to criticize Modi, I am not disputing his entitlement to have a view. But is a judge or a person holding a judicial or a quasi-judicial office entitled to participate? What is the propriety? I am only on an issue of propriety. I am on no other issue.
No, but you're also on the issue of what he has said. Now, there are two parts of this controversy, Mr. Jaitley. One is whether Justice Katju has the right or should be exercising his views in the manner that you question. The other is the specific allegations which he lays out. I want to spend some time on the specific allegations in your article. You, Mr. Jaitley, accused Justice Katju of selectively targeting non-Congress governments. Karju disputes that, and he is not entirely incorrect. He asked the Maharashtra government to be dismissed. To be dismissed for attacks on journalists. He sends emails to Prithviraj Chavan. He has written to the center on the harassment of Iftikhar Gilani by the Delhi police following Afzal Guru's execution. So he has been.
If Justice Karju, within the parameters of his responsibility as a press council chairman, speaks on a particular issue or writes on a particular issue, I would straight away concede to him the right to do that. That's a part of his job. So if a journalist is arrested and he comments on that, that's a part of his job. But it is certainly not a part of his job to start commenting on the politics of a state, on who should be the next Prime Minister of India.
What if he draws inferences from the situation and links it to the politics of the state? For example, you say in your article, when confronted with favorable comments by large sections of domestic and international community praising the change of polity in Bihar and the emergence of development at the center stage agenda of politics, Justice Karju chooses to target Nitish Kumar and the Bihar government for the lack of press freedom. But the report on press freedom in Bihar is a report that's prepared by the Press Council of India.
Whoever are members who prepare it, I don't think the chairman can say I have nothing to do with any such report. Now, I've been also dealing with Bihar for almost a decade now. I have not read editors of newspapers or news channels like you, anybody in the media commenting that there is no press freedom in Bihar. In fact, Nitish Kumar is criticized by the Bihar media as much as any politician is criticized. And therefore, to say that press freedom doesn't exist in Bihar, I'm asking you, it's your job to ask questions, but let me for a change ask you a question. Have you come across a single article or an observation by any editor of a newspaper operating out of Bihar saying there is no press freedom in Bihar and that Nitish Kumar can't be criticized? Now, so the very fact that you alter an agenda makes me feel uneasy to say that there is no press freedom in this country.
There were senior journalists on that team which criticized the Nitish Kumar government. There was Rajiv Ranjan Nag, he headed the team. The other members of the team were Kalyan Barua and Arun Kumar, senior journalists. The hearing began over a month. So my contention to you is it was not only Justice Karju who was putting this report
According to me, I am questioning. You see, I am not getting into the individual personalities of the persons involved. I am only saying, is it there could be an individual case of an aberration in any state with regard to press freedom. The Press Council must look into it. It's a part of Justice Karju's job to look into it. But to then come up and say that the press in Bihar is in danger. Now, a comment of this kind, you see, a lot depends on who you select to go into a particular team. I'll give you a team for any state which can come out with a report also. But a chairman has to be very particular about who he selects, who he doesn't select.
Are you suggesting that the Press Council
I am not even suggesting for a moment, but I am strongly contesting the fact that press freedom doesn't exist in Bihar. If any journalist or editor of repute is in a position to show that Nitish Kumar or his government is a threat to press freedom of Bihar, I'll be certainly enlightened if they give me facts to that effect.
But equally, can't it be argued that Arun Jaitley is reacting to criticism of NDA governments? Arun Jaitley did not come out and say, an equally scathing and perhaps sweeping comment was made when Justice Karju said he shot off a show cause notice to the Maharashtra government with dismissal under Article 356 for failing to uphold the constitution. The provocation was attacks on 800 journalists over 10 years. At that time, allow me to complete. At that time, why didn't Arun Jaitley or a senior BJP leader come and contest what Justice Karju did?
Even at that stage, of course, you don't comment on every issue. But I don't think Press Council has been given the power under Article 356. And therefore, the power under Article 356 under the Constitution belongs to the President on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, whether acting on the report of the Governor or otherwise. Press Council issuing notices under Article 356, please understand, when the Constitution has prescribed the power to be exercised in a particular manner subject to certain constraints, it must be exercised in that manner and not at all. The very fact that you have a former judge of the Supreme Court heading the Press Council, you all the more expect Press Council to act with a sense of responsibility.
Is the Press Council of India chairman to be censored, Mr. Jaitley? The argument can be made that ideologically Justice Karju may have his point of view. He's exercising his point of view as much as you are.
Please, he's entitled to. My simple question which I put to you in the beginning, if he wants to exercise a point of view on who should be the next Prime Minister of India, what should be the economic development model, who is responsible for a certain political development or otherwise, issues not related to press freedom. And these are all issues he's commented on in the Hindu, which are not related to press freedom. he must then, as an ordinary citizen, write on these subjects. He can't say, I will occupy the office, a quasi-judicial office, have all the immunity of a former judge, so that I am treated like a former judge, but what I say will be entirely political.
Let there be an open debate. Why get into a debate on the individual and whether he's exceeding his brief? Why not have an open debate on the issues?
I'm on a question of propriety. Let me tell you, if judges and holders of judicial and quasi-judicial offices started participating in politics, the question of political neutrality will go, and their independence and the impartiality of their verdicts itself will be questioned.
You speak of post-retirement jobs for judges, Mr. Jaitley. The counter, you say that you have held a strong view that judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court should not be eligible for jobs in the government or related to the government after retirement. However, this is a norm. And all governments, including yours, when you were law minister, have appointed judges in critical posts.
That's a fair comment to make. That's a fair comment to make.
So why is this an afterthought now?
It's not an afterthought. After all, your own views evolve on basis of a certain experience. Conventionally, tribunals, other quasi-judicial bodies have been headed by former judges.
True.
And therefore, those jobs have been given to former judges.
True.
In the recent years, my own experience, and I have said this on record, not for the first time in the context of Justice Kardju, I have repeatedly said so. I have found on the eve of retirement a clamour amongst judges to get post-retirement jobs. A very large number of them feel that getting a job after it, and some judges of high integrity and high reputation like Justice Verma, Justice Venkatachalaya, to drive home the point that this should not be done, decided not even to do private arbitrations, let alone accepting these jobs, except the constitutional office of NHRC. They did not accept these jobs. Even when other responsibilities were offered to them, they said, we'll do it without remuneration. Why I am saying this point is, pre-retirement conduct can be and at times gets influenced by the desire of a post-retirement job.
But that applied to the India government too?
That certainly it's on basis of that experience that I am saying so. And I have said this on record, that even when I was a law minister, my own experience was the clamour amongst retiring judges to get jobs was very high. It's not in the interest of independence of judiciary that we have a situation that every judge thinks of what happens to him post-retirement. Therefore, when people have spoken in terms of increasing the age, I am all in favour of increasing the age. I am all in favour of even making your pension equal to the last round pay, so that it adds to judicial independence, but then subsume all these tribunals for serving judges. For serving judges, the level of accountability is far higher. Post-retirement, the level of accountability is very little.
Mr. Jaitley, I get a sense that this is not really about Justice Kardju, is it? It is about the criticism on Narendra Modi, which perhaps the Bharatiya Janata Party suspects might increase in the weeks and months to come.
Not in the least.
So allow me, does your reaction, if I were to ask, does your reaction to Justice Kardju's piece, where he repeatedly refers to 2002, is that reaction based upon a political assessment that we will now have to react extremely strongly to any criticism of Narendra Modi on the Gujarat riots?
I reiterate that my reaction is primarily on a question of propriety. A judge, whether sitting or retired, as long as he holds a judicial or a quasi-judicial office, cannot make and should not make political
comments. But it has been a decade or more now since the 2002 Gujarat riots. The shadow still continues. Is that not your Achilles heel? Is that not what you're reacting to? There have been several pieces published in newspapers now which have raised this issue once again, as Mr. Modi has become more prominent in the media.
You can raise these issues, but at the end of the day, Gujarat has seen more investigations, more re-investigations, more SITs, far more SITs than any other riot in this country has. And I am afraid they have not been able to find any evidence against
But
Mr.
the
Modi.
question is of perception, Mr. Jaitley.
Well, perception is created by you. The truth lies in the evidence.
But the perception is important.
Well,
especially when we are
and therefore the perception will be met by the truth itself. Ultimately, truth prevails over what can be an erroneous perception.
Is the ghost of 2002 still very much there, like a call over the BJP and over Mr. Modi?
According to me, 2002 was one of the saddest occasions. It was a very unfortunate riot.
Yes.
A lot of trials have been held. People are being held accountable for it.
Yes.
But at the same time, you can't allow any system to get into a process where just on the strength of a propaganda or a campaign, evidence gets substituted. That is something which is not fair.
It's a democracy.
Well, in a democracy, you must have a fair trial, and there have been fair trials, there have been convictions, and if after investigations and re-investigations, you find no evidence against an individual, then you have to accept that as the last word.
So the common perception is that this is all preparing for Narendra Modi's increasing
Well,
role in the
the common perception is that Modi is not responsible. That is why he's won 3 consecutive elections after 2000.
Can the BJP afford to go into the 2014 elections without a prime ministerial face?
Well, I think this is
all signs emerging from the other side are that of Rahul Gandhi taking a more prominent position. The BJP can't dodge this question, and Arun Jaitley can't dodge this question.
Well, I have no intention of dodging this question.
Yes.
Nor I have any intention of unilaterally answering this question in the course of an interview.
Yes.
It's been stated several times on behalf of the BJP
Yes.
that the party will take a decision at the right time. The party's parliamentary board will decide. We'll consult our allies on the subject and we'll announce our decision.
Mr. Jaitley, Narendra Modi has emerged in the last few weeks as a front runner to lead the BJP in 2014. You concede that. Several other BJP leaders have endorsed his background.
Well,
even Mohan Bhagwat has obliquely seemed to have given a signal. Do you think this candidature of Mr. Modi is a foregone conclusion? It is only a matter of time before a formal announcement?
Well, I am not going to use any adjectives. All I can tell you is I completely accept all your statements in support of Narendra Modi's popularity, but the fact as to who is the candidate, whether he is the candidate or otherwise, will be decided at the right time by the BJP central leadership.
With a groundswell of support emerging for Mr. Modi recently, and yet there is a reluctance to name him as the prime ministerial race, Mr. Jaitley, would it be right to say that the biggest obstacle to Mr. Modi is more within the party than outside?
Well, I don't think so. When you use the word groundswell,
in the party,
when you use
in your
the word,
party,
when you
groundswell in your party,
when you use the word groundswell
in your party,
I can see the groundswell within the party. I can see it outside the party also. I'm quite conscious of the fact that there is a groundswell, but then to say that there is any opposition in the party itself, these are all media controversies which you are entitled to create. As I reiterate what I have said just now, the right decision will be taken at the appropriate time. And we'll keep that groundswell in mind when we take the decision.
That groundswell is within the party. May I quote Arun Jaitley to Arun Jaitley? In December 2012, Arun Jaitley is quoted as saying, BJP is proud of the fact it had a leader like Modi and he's so popular and a successful CM that it is natural the party will keep his name quote unquote ahead in the prime ministerial aspirants list. What is one to interpret from that?
Well, I think the language is very clear and one doesn't have to repeat it, but I stand by what I have been saying all these days. He's certainly extremely popular, and I am sure that the factum of his popularity will be borne in mind whenever the decision is taken, but the decision will only be taken at the appropriate time.
Will the JDU jump ship? Will the JDU jump ship? You've had a long association as a leader of the NDA in the past. You have a strong association with Mr. Nitish Kumar. It was reported that you met Mr. Nitish Kumar. Are you worried that Nitish Kumar and the JDU will jump ship if his name is announced? You
never discuss electoral strategy in public, particularly when you are working on that electoral strategy. Our strategy is certainly to have the best possible leadership, and we are also in favor not only of strengthening the NDA, expanding the NDA. Whatever decision we'll take, we'll consult the NDA allies before we finalize the decision.
The JDU has said it wants a secular candidate. Yashwant Sinha was quoted as saying JDU is free to leave if it wanted. Will it come down to choosing between the two?
Well, I am sure such a situation should not arise, will not arise. And at the same time, when our policy has been alliance politics, has paid rich dividends to the BJP, as also to our allies. And I am sure, fed up with this UPA and the Congress government, everybody will bear the need in mind for strengthening this alliance and having the most popular man to lead the...
But surely you don't want to win on the basis of a negative vote. What is going to be your agenda? Not what the UPA has not done for 2014.
Well, I think
because the Kumbh has seen a resurgence of the Hindutva issue. And on the other hand, Mr. Modi speaks about development. How do you reconcile between these two? And,
well, you see,
which is your more prominent issue, Mr.
Well, you don't choose between the two. Nobody is a one-issue party. You have issues of traditional ideology in mind. You state those positions. You have then governance agendas of a larger alliance. You keep those governance agendas in mind. And today, rightly or wrongly, and I think rightly so, the agenda of good governance, honest governance, developmental governance in India has certainly started acquiring a prime space. But that doesn't mean that on issues of national integrity, and other political issues you are going to abandon. You keep them in mind. That's your ultimate target which you try and
Haven't
achieve.
your main planks been taken away with the execution of Afzal Guru and before that of Kassav? The charge of a weak soft center, which has been a fulcrum of your arguments and your speeches as well, has also been softened. On the other hand, the Nitin Gadkari issue softened your entire position on corruption.
Not in the least. Not in the least.
It softened your position on corruption.
Not in the least. As far as Nitin Gadkari is concerned, he himself offered on day one, and his stand is even today very clear. He offered himself for an inquiry. The Congress has never been in favor of such transparent methods of investigation. As far as the execution of these two is concerned, the BJP has the image of being very strongly hostile to any form of terror or any form of insurgency. The Congress has always been found wobbling on these issues. You see, even on these issues, to prolong an execution for 5-6 years, not to go hard on the Maoist violence in the country. Now, these are all factors which people bear in mind. Just by one act of execution where public opinion compels you to act as per law doesn't mean that you are vindicated of your position, that you've been soft as far as these issues are concerned.
Do you think there will be an early election?
Well, my own view about an election is it's a numbers game. Will this government lose its majority in parliament immediately? And that depends on how vulnerable the Samajwadi Party and the Bahujan Samaj Party are, because experience of the last 9 years has shown that every time this government could collapse, these two parties are always there to bail the government out. The day these two decide that they have the moral courage to stand up, which I doubt whether they do have, the government will be in serious trouble.
So when do you see election happening? On time or before that?
Well, the election could be held next year, that's in the middle of next year, or it could be held a little earlier. We are only...
Are you prepared for the eventuality of an
We are
early election?
entirely prepared for the eventuality of the election. The BJP is gearing up. We are fairly strong. Our organizational activity has hugely increased in the past few months.
I'd contest that, Mr. Jaitley. You see, you haven't named a prime minister. Allow me to be a little bit of a cynic. You haven't named a prime ministerial candidate. There is a bit of confusion among the top levels of the party on who the face of your party is. Your government in Karnataka is wobbly. Your party's performance in Uttar Pradesh was disappointing. The Jharkhand experiment failed yet again. Your Himachal Pradesh, you lost Himachal Pradesh despite relying on price rise and corruption. The Gadkari issue is not forgotten in the minds of the people. So how can you say the BJP is prepared?
Well, let me tell you.
What is the index of preparation?
In Uttar Pradesh, there is a huge undercurrent of change which is taking place. People have seen the BSP government and the SP government now, and they are looking for other alternatives. Karnataka, yes, we have suffered because the party got divided with one of the senior leaders going out of the party. But the fact that we have been able substantially to hold most of the party together, we are the prime contenders for power in Karnataka. And we've demonstrated, despite all these difficulties, we've completed virtually the 5-year term in Karnataka.
But you concede, all these points are correct. What the points I made on Karnataka,
Well,
UP, Jharkhand and
I can give a counterpoint. End of this year, before the next general election, there will be 4 major assemblies which are going to poll. We are hoping to win all 4 of them.
Let me ask you a few questions on the budget session of Parliament. This decision to hang Afzal Guru, Mr. Jaitley, took you by surprise, you know. It blunted your offensive. That's point 1. It blunted your offensive.
I don't think so.
It took away an issue.
You see, Afzal Guru not being executed or his execution being delayed was a key issue.
You wrote about it. You spoke about it repeatedly.
We were speaking about it, but the fact that they have reluctantly done it under pressure of public opinion doesn't make this government a very strong government.
The point is your target was Mr. Shinde. You were constantly ruling out any apology from him on the basis of his remark on Saffron.
May I ask you a question?
Does
Mr. Shinde have any evidence to say that the BJP or the RSS have been holding terror camps?
So
to make a statement which he can't substantiate. And therefore, for a political party, the principal opposition party in this country, to say, if you think we are holding terror camps, then please ban us.
Won't you be seen as too rigid? I mean, after all that he's done, will you continue to boycott him in the upcoming parliament session?
Within parliamentary democracy, to accuse the principal opposition party of organizing terror camps? Can you have a home minister who doesn't have the sense of restraint as to what charge is to be made, and a charge which he can't substantiate by any evidence?
The economy is not looking up. We're talking about 5%, which you're critical of, but there's so many pending bills in Parliament. Are you going to waste the time of Parliament in disruptions and the entire session to be wasted? Is that good perception for the BJP?
I can tell you, it is for this government to decide whether they want an environment of consensus or they want an environment of confrontation. And therefore, as far as the economy is concerned, we are ready to cooperate on a large number of issues with this government. We have cooperated in the past, but if this government indulges in some form of unilateralism and introduces an environment of confrontation, then economic consensus also suffers in that environment. We hope that doesn't happen.
Well, you should be offering the support to the government with the
And they can, the government chooses to call us as a party which organizes terror camps, and we must be offering support to this government.
Does the national interest come first?
We live.
Does the national interest come first?
It's a part of national interest that no responsible government uses such phraseology for the opposition.
Are you on the back foot on Choppergate, on Armsgate, this whole issue? Because, Mr. Jaitley...
on the back foot?
Yes.
We should be on the offensive. The guys who make the money should be on the back foot.
There is the NDA connection. Allow me to elaborate. This London-based consultant, Christian Michael's name was cropped up in this Augusta Westland deal. He had an agreement with Dassault for another defense deal that was sealed in November 2000. That was when you were in power. He did not get his commission. But the broader issue is the impunity with which agents operated. They operated during the NDA time as well.
Well, agents will operate. You'll have corrupt people and middlemen operating all over the world.
How are they allowed
if you can identify any political entity during the NDA government who has been responsible for receiving even a rupee in any of these transactions, please hang them. They have not even been able to come out with a shred of evidence. They've been in power for 9 years. Therefore, at the end of the day, as far as the Chopper deal is concerned, as I see it, is very simple. There is bribe which has been given in negotiating the deal. The bribe giver has been arrested in Italy. The quantum of bribe is known. Bribe is not given to middlemen or agents. They get a commission. Bribe is given to the person who eventually is instrumental in swinging the order. That must be a person in authority.
So,
whether he is in politics or in the civil service or in the armed forces, that is the gentleman who has to be identified.
Sure.
That identification has to take place at the Indian end.
Yes.
So the bribe giver is known, the quantum is known. It is the responsibility of the present government to immediately identify the bribe taker.
Well, Dassault had a deal with Christian Michael. At that time, the NDA was in government. The deal to buy 10 Mirages was signed.
Well, but if you can establish that anybody in NDA took any kickback or any allegation of a kickback is concerned, you have a UPA government in power, please let them investigate.
But the perception is that there is a cloud,
There
a
is
similar cloud over the NDA.
Every deal is not necessarily a corrupt deal. Let's be very clear about it. And if there was any element of corruption in any of these deals, you had 9 years to even suggest that. This is the first suggestion that I'm hearing from you today. Nobody has even alleged that or even dared to suggest that.
Well, that's perhaps the Congress is also on the back foot, or it doesn't absolve the BJP.
Well, nobody has brought, not even Arnab Goswami has brought a shred of evidence against the BJP as far as defense deals were concerned. And therefore, here is an evidence which has come. Only the identification of the bribe taker remains, and I think that has to be immediately done by this government.
Where does your fight with Justice Kajju go from here, Mr. Jaitley?
Well, I have no personal fight with Justice Kajju.
It's a very personal fight. From all the the wonderful phrases being exchanged on both sides.
It's only an issue of propriety that I have raised, and I am certain that I am right and correct on the issue of propriety.
Have you gone too far personally with him? You said dignified comment is alien to him. His utterances as a judge and thereafter are clearly outlandish.
Therefore, what kind of comments has he been making recently? 90% of Indians are idiots. You don't bring a bad.
Why didn't you say it then? Why didn't you criticize him then when he attacked 90% of Indians?
You give benefit of doubt, you give some leeway to people, but it's only when you find that he is now crossing one limit after another and openly indulging in politics of this kind that somebody had to call this bluff off. And somebody has to say, well, please stop this.
Mr. Jaitley, thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell us what you think about this episode of Frankly Speaking and who you'd like to see next on the show.